Hi, welcome to this end of season roundup video. Well, there's still a few bits going on with transfer bids and whatnot, but we're not sure if we have an opportunity to do this tomorrow. It's a very busy day, the last day of the month, so we're going to do it now. So just have a look at the season really and see how it's gone, and we'll start with our league performance. Now I think, I don't know if this is an official statistic, but I'm just going to declare it as an official one because it sounds good. I think we might have the best title losing goal difference ever. I think to tie the league and have 115 positive goal difference and finished second on goal difference. I think that might be a record. Could be wrong though. But I'd be surprised. But yeah, there's a lot of seasons, a lot of leagues and stuff. It's possible that somebody might have fallen a bit further short than we have, but yeah. And also, I mean, there's another team very close. There might have been three-way ties or something in the future. I don't really know, but this was a very, very close league. It's certainly the closest title race that I've ever been involved with by a large margin, basically. Especially when you consider it was decided on goal difference, and especially when another team was only 1 point off. And I had a really interesting run-in because PCCFC were off the pace a fair bit, but then in back-to-back matches they beat Feta Cheese and us. And if either of us had have got a result against PCCFC and the other one lost, then probably who got the result definitely would have won the league. And we actually had in the match that we had against PCCFC, it was just the type of match we could have won, we could have lost, we could have drawn, it could have gone any which way because it was such an action-packed match. And unfortunately we lost. And ultimately lost the league. But really, when you look at a league like this, every decision in every match lost us the league, basically. Every slightly when you lose on goal difference, it's like one less mistake, one more good decision could have resulted in you picking up 1 point more in the whole season, and that would have won the league. And even failing that, even if some better decision making didn't even get an extra point, even if it didn't do that, even if it just scored you some extra goals in some matches that you were going to win anyway, or just picking up a few extra goals could have won the league here as well. So it's definitely just a clear illustration really of how, you know, a month-long journey of 38 matches in the end is just decided by such fine margins, and how every decision that was made in every single match contributed to this place, to this point where we know that we've recorded lots of matches. We know for a fact that I think the decision making this season was good overall. Maybe one of our better seasons, but not our best. I think last season was probably better. Last season at Third Lanark was probably our best. So this was maybe in the top 3 or 4 or 5 seasons. And if we had have done our best ever decision making, we would have won the league almost certainly. And if we had have, done some of our more average or worse decision making, we probably would have finished third. So, and as it stands, we just did one of our better seasons, and that was enough to get second. So, just such a close race. And again, I think Feta Cheese and ourselves and PCCFC, we were the 3 main teams in Division 3 last season. I think it was very close last season as well, where we did win it in Division 3, and this time it was very close again, but Feta Cheese won it. And it was just, I think generally speaking, I mean obviously congratulations to them. I think it was a really tough, fought out season, and I think it just, I don't know for the other, I'm sure for PCCFC themselves, but I do really think it was just like, it's like a spanner was thrown in the works. It's like everything you planned for and thought just was all tipped on its head really when they beat ourselves and Feta Cheese in those 2 back-to-back matches. I think it just totally tipped the dynamic of everything. It made it much more interesting on the run-in. It was really edgy seat stuff, and we all won all of our matches basically. from that point. And we were saying that if anybody drops a point, they're out of the race. Just dropped 1 point in one match in their like remaining 4 matches, 5 matches, whatever, they're out. And we all won all our matches pretty much. 3 or 4 matches, sorry, not 4 or 5. It was 3 or 4 matches left. So, and we all won them all. So yeah, just really interesting. We dominated Division 3. We've dominated Division 2, and it will be very interesting because there's some good teams in Division 1, and it's just good to be back there. And yeah, I'm also curious not only to see how we'll fare against all of our old rivals and one of the strongest teams in the whole game is in that league, so it'll be very interesting to see how we'll fare. But we're also, somewhat curious how these other 2 guys are going to fare alongside of us, how we'll do as a collective set of 3 versus the old establishment that's there. And also we've been away for a few seasons, so I'm sure some things have changed, and there's probably a couple other users that we're not that familiar with, and some that we are that are doing better and doing worse or whatever, so it'll just be a bit interesting. But I think largely speaking, it's just going to be interesting to be back there, and we're looking forward to it. So but for this season, I think our goal was to get promoted, and we got promoted. Now, ideally, we would have liked to have won the league, but we didn't. But we achieved the main goal, which was to get promoted. So that was nice. And our other goal was to have a really good cup run. I don't think we really achieved that other goal. We'll have a look at our cup runs. So in the EAFA Cup, we got knocked out, I think in the 3rd round, was it? Yeah, the 3rd round on penalties. And it was such a close match. And then Phantoms are a really good team, especially this was early on in the season. Our team had some deficiencies that were addressed throughout the season, but we hadn't been addressed at that point. And, I think we did really well to get through the whole match in extra time at 0-0, and, lost the penalty shootout. The flip of the coin state, we lost it unfortunately. Could have got lucky, we could have gone further. And I think a 4th round knockout would have meant that rather than us basically failing in having a good cup run, we've just had an average one, I think it would have been a success if we could have got to the 4th round. So this objective, the success or failure state of it, was decided by a penalty shootout. In the other cups, the community trophy, I think we were knocked out before in the 2nd round, maybe. Or earlier even. I was right. We knocked out in the 2nd round, and by the same opposition as well. We lost 1-0. So we gave them 2 proper matches and only conceded 1 goal against them over 2 matches. So but obviously we didn't score, but we did challenge and we did give them a match. We did give them a game. I'm pretty confident that we won't get relegated next season from Division 1. I think I'm going to go out and say it, and I'm also somewhat confident that neither will Fetiches and neither will PCCFC. I think we're too good to get relegated. I do honestly, I would be very surprised if one of the 3 of us win the league next season, because Neos Cosmos are just so dominant, and I think we might need a bit of time to compete. And I also would be somewhat surprised, really, if one of us could manage a top 4 finish. I wouldn't put it in the realms of impossibility. I'd just be surprised if we did. I think in the longer term, all 3 of us are definitely capable of getting those top 4 finishes and hopefully ultimately winning the league. But I just think next season we're going to definitely need more time to win the title, I'm pretty sure. In a way, I hope I'm wrong though, but we'll see. And then in the 90-minute fever Cup, I think we got knocked out pretty early on here as well. In fact, it's going to be too hard to surf through that list. We got knocked out in the 2nd round. So our best cup performance was the FA Cup, and like I said, if we had just got through that 1 extra round, then I think we would have been happy with that cup run, as opposed to not happy with our best cup run, which is the one that counts. And Overall, though, I think you would say acceptable. Acceptable. I mean, it was a fun season. I think acceptable in regards to the ultimate outcome, not winning the league but getting promoted, and not having a cup run as good as we'd hoped, but not totally failing in every cup, at least having one semi-decent run. I think acceptable is probably just the word, compared to our start of season expectations and what was actually achieved. I think you just say it's acceptable, it wasn't bad, it just wasn't really exceeding our expectations in any way, or indeed possibly even really meeting them, but maybe just sneaking in, just meeting them. I think it's just acceptable. It's definitely the word. I keep saying it, but it is. I think just acceptable. That's the word to describe this season. But ultimately, really, our goal was always the key goal. That would have been really big setback to have not achieved it, was promotion. That was definitely the main goal. So we've achieved that. So I don't think that should be understated, because it would have been a bitterly disappointing setback and a bitterly disappointing season if we failed to get promoted here. It would have been a huge setback. So I think the fact that we've achieved that, and we've managed to sort of achieve that, part of the problem, I think, as a new user like ourselves, and we experienced it more last season and this season, and next season I think we'll experience it to a lesser degree, and the season after hopefully it won't be an issue. But because the cups are starting early in the season, and you're still trying to build your squad and assemble your squad, each promotion you're trying to improve it and everything, and it can take a bit of time to get your ducks in a row, and basically you can find yourself knocked out of all of the cups before you get your ducks in a row. Whereas if you're more established and in the top division already, you tend to not have so much sorting out to have to do at the start of each season. So you might get knocked out of the cups early, but it's not because your ducks weren't in a row, it's just because you got knocked out, basically. So hopefully we'll find ourselves in that position in a couple of seasons where if we get knocked out early, we don't got anyone to blame except ourselves. Just no excuses, whereas at the moment we kind of got an excuse. So I think that just sums up the season, really. In regards, I think the more impressive thing for us really this season, which we can talk about, actually was our youth league performances. So we'll just look at those. Now, it is the case that Hardy Athletic will win this league, no matter what they do in the last match. But we finished second. And it's Division 14. Who cares or whatever. But we did really well with the team. I mean, these results. We had to grind for every result. But we had to make changes and tactics, and it's like we easily had, I'd say, one of the worst, but definitely one of the least valuable teams in this division. Both our under-18s and under-21 squads, it's just totally true to say that the teams, that's inclusive of the player, the tactic, and the manager, I guess, and the decisions we've made, were just far, far greater than the sum of their parts. And we just did really well. And that was really satisfying. And I know it's only Division 14, but still, we just got so many results because of great decision making in these matches. So many points we picked up that we had no business picking up, and it was just really good to do so well with basically what was an entire squad of free transfers or thereabouts. I don't know what not quite, but I mean, our squad value is, let's have a look, because you can see that actually. Let's just look at it this way. So, club details. So our squad book value was 461,000, our youth team. So hardly anything. And the team that beat us by a single point, or maybe a bit more depending on what they do in the last match, but they've got a book value of 20.6 million. So their team is literally worth like 40, 44, 43, 40, I don't know, the best part of 50 times more than ours, basically. It's like a monumental difference in squad value. And there's quite a number of other teams that are even worth sort of double, triple our team, but you know, we just did really well. And I think our under 18s were even more impressive, quite frankly, because we won the league easily. We won the league by 6 clear points, and yeah, again, it's Division 7, but again, it was just a team of rejects, basically. Nobody else wanted any of the players we got, and I think it's even more extreme than the under 21s. Let's have a look at club details. Is that true? Might be. Is it cash or? Let's have a look. Under 18. Yeah, I think it might be a caching issue there, so I'm going to have to make a note quickly to look into that after. So our squad's value is 42k. 42k. And we won the league by a lot. And I'm not quite sure. Are they really worth 27 million? Let's have a look. Probably, fine. Yep, thereabouts, I reckon it is. So we've basically beat our teams who have a squad worth 27 million, and lots of teams with really expensive squads, with a team that's worth £42,000 and was entirely free transfer except for 2 players, which basically sold for 5k and 50k or something. And just did it with a team of players. Literally nobody wanted any of them, basically. And we just did really well. We were really competitive. We scored lots of goals, and just the bigger teams, we ground out the results quite often. We got them, and we just did really, really well. And probably just a separate note, that Juventus, I think them in particular, they are another team that their squad isn't particularly valuable either. So they've done really well as well. So just really happy with these youth. And I know that they're only Division 7 and they're only Division 14, but just to do so well with a team that is basically worth nothing against a team that's worth 27 million and lots of other teams that are worth more than 10 million, it's just so good that you can just beat all these teams and beat them in style, beat them by lots of points in the league, and to prove it over the course. I just think our proper achievements this season really were in the youth leagues. Now, obviously, we're going to get promoted and go up, and I don't know when it will cease to be viable to compete like we are with a team entirely composed of free agents. But we'll see. We'll see where that road ends, and we might, I think it's just incidental. We just didn't really pick up any youth players that we just decided it was better value to be found getting the free agents than compete in the auctions, basically. But we might pick some players for some money at some point. But I always imagined in the coming months that there's always going to be teams that have squads that are just way valuable than ours, because we don't have that much money, basically. So yeah, so I think that'll just continue to be the case, and we'll just have to continue to find a way to compete. But like I said, I'm very happy with how we did in the youth leagues. Really chuffed to bits. Very good. So outside of that, we've just sort of got our squad updates, and I guess general progress update maybe in regards to the grand scheme and the grand plan. Let's just do the squad updates quickly. Oh no, we'll do the grand plan first, because there's a couple of auctions ending that will be ended by the time we cover the next bit, and we'll be able to factor those extra bits into the thing. So I think the grand plan, it's kind of worth having a 5-year plan, and 5-season plan, and we had one when we started, and the first 2 seasons of that plan pretty much really only consisted of get promoted, And that would be the plan for us. If we were in the FA with more depth, that had more divisions, our plan would have been get promoted, get promoted, get promoted, get promoted, get promoted every single season until you're Division 1. That would be our plan. But in this case, you know, we're planning 5 years ahead, 5 seasons ahead, and our first 2 seasons consisted of get promoted, get promoted. Now, ideally, we would like to have won the league this season. We'd like to have had a good cup run. We'd like to have done various things. But get promoted was the main objective for those 2 seasons. And the secondary objective was to establish a proper financial footing, a proper financial foundation, so that when we do get to Division 1, we can compete. Maybe not the first season, maybe not the second season, maybe not the third season, ideally the third season, but make sure that when we get there, we have a proper foundation in place to be able to compete. And that has come at a trade-off for us, for sure. This season, for sure, you know, we've lost the league on goal difference. We easily could have got an extra point at some point if we had just spent some. If we had just blown some money, we could have just got a couple superstar players, and we could have easily got an extra point at some stage, and we would have probably just won the league. I mean, who knows what the other 2 teams would have done if we had done that? They might have got some extra players themselves. I really don't know, but I'm just saying, in isolation, we could have got some better players, and if we had, we probably would have got at least 1 more point, and if not, at least scored some more goals. Probably would have won the league, but we consciously chose to not do that. And even worse, to a degree, at various points during this season, we've really had our team dismantled. We've lost our star striker during the season. That was really hard. That cost us points. Basically, our whole run of results where we didn't win, 3 of those matches anyway, came in sequence when we lost a striker. Straight after we lost him, we were struggling to get some kind of replacement in or to deal with that loss. Or specifically that we just lost that depth. So we lost our star striker, and then our backup striker got injured for 5 matches straight after, basically. And it was in that sequence where we dropped points in 3 of them, where we basically lost the league. And it's really hard to talk about what would have happened if, because you never know. But I'm just saying, it's probable that we wouldn't have dropped so many points in that sequence if we hadn't have lost both of our strikers at the same time, which we probably wouldn't have if one of them wasn't sold. But like they say, when it rains, it pours, right? So of course, if your backup striker is going to get injured for 5 matches, that's going to be when your main striker isn't also available. It's just how the cookie crumbles. But for us, you know, we basically have lost a striker for £1 million or whatever it was, and that has potentially cost us the league. So we've basically traded in a league win here to get a bit of money to help us establish a proper financial footing. Unfortunately, it wasn't a good deal at all, and we probably have to pay more money to replace for an equivalent player or whatever, but that's a separate thing really. That's just a bad decision in isolation, potentially. I don't know. It's also the case that the striker was decent. He wasn't probably good enough. He was good enough to do well this season. He was good enough to do decent in Division 1, but he wasn't really going to be the striker that was ever going to propel us to a top 4 finish in Division 1 anyway. He might have been a viable backup striker though, I don't know, separate conversations. But basically, we've just made these decisions because what we care more about is having that sort of solid foundation financially to be able to make these top players accessible to us if we want them. It may not be a good decision to get them, but if we want them. So yeah, that's just it really. And then we've sold some other players. We look at the deals. So I think in regards to next season, we're basically just looking at obviously not getting relegated. It's first and foremost the absolute objective to not get relegated under any circumstances, no matter what. And that is something where if it is looking like we might get relegated, which really hope isn't the case, but if it is looking like it might be the case, that is a situation where you might blow some cash to avoid it, because it would set us back a lot, and will save money in the long term to spend money to not get relegated, potentially, depending on how much, of course. So yeah. But outside of that exception, I think we just want to make sure that we built a structure strong enough in a deliberate manner with good transfer deals where that isn't an issue. And we'll just have a quick look really at the transfer activity. So we can look at the deals out. 1.5 million for this player. In the face of it, great deal. This is covered in a separate video actually. If you want to look in the tips and tactics section, there's a video that's covering this. But basically, yeah, we paid 90k and we sold him for 1.5 million. It's a great deal on the face of it until you go to replace him with a right winger who's anywhere near as good as him without paying double the price. Real hard to replace. And in actual fact, I think we've spent more than 5 million for a player who isn't as good now, but he's younger. So yeah, we've basically got 1.5 million and replaced him with a player that cost over 5 million that isn't as good. The long and short of it is that, even though as good on the pitch now, as opposed to how good he might be in the future or anything like that. So I'm not saying it was a terrible deal, or a great deal. Just saying, yeah. It's not like we spent 5 million to get a player that was just worse. He's a wiki player, but plus he's also a lot younger, so it's hard to balance it all up. And then also, we've transferred a couple other players. Don't need to go into them. A couple of centre halves for like 250k and 100k or something. And then Robbie Slater's been sold. I'm not quite sure. I have to check. Really, 50k. He went for 50k in the end. So we got basically nothing for Robbie Slater. But that's expected. He's older and whatever. And this player will complete when that happens soon. So we'll come back to that. So we'll do we don't know what we'll get for him. We released. We suspect we might get a little bit, but honestly we don't know. I suspect the more likely outcome is that he'll go for. Somebody will bid, but only one person will, and he'll go for free. I'm calling it. That's my guess. I could be wrong. So outside of that, let's have a look at who we picked up and who we lost during the season. So let's look at our transfers and let's look at by date. So the transfers in, I won't cover the free youth players because there's quite a lot of them and probably none of them are any good. We'll just look at the main deal. So one of them, we got a holding midfielder for 30k. I don't think that's just to give some depth. I don't need to cover that. He's nothing special. I think he's just gives us some depth and gives us that's it. He's just squad depth. Don't need to cover that. I don't think he's going to be worth a lot in the future. There's nothing special. I guess that the 90k for the right winger that we then sold it during the close season for 1.5 million was a great deal. And then we've also picked up Tony Daly, which was some of these players. Tony Daly again. A lot of these guys were good deals, really. And picked up Paulinho, another wiki player for 260k, doing a good job. We made our first bigger purchase, like our record transfer at the time. We've since made a couple of purchases, so we bought Farina. This was basically just a replacement striker. I don't think there's any deals here where you're just really thinking they're that big a deal, really. We haven't made any of the transfers yet, on this list anyway, where you would be confident enough to say that any of these players will still be at our club in 3 months' time. I don't think. But I could be wrong. I mean, some of them will be. I just mean I don't think there's any player where I would say with absolute confidence that they definitely will be. I think there's a few that might, particularly some of these younger ones, if they happen to develop quite well. I think they might, but yeah, nothing too special. In regards to the transfers out this season, I think we just, not a lot. The striker, I think these are covered. I think it's worth checking out that transfers, the tips video about the transfers, really, and get some insight into the couple big ones there that people probably care about the most. So I don't think anything too dramatic there. In regards to players coming in, I think we're just really getting a better backup keeper for free, a couple youth players cheap, and really that's it. One older senior player for 220k who's just gives us some squad depth. I think we just really, what we wanted was just a player who can give squad depth, who can sit on the bench in the case of injury, and gives tactical versatility by playing multiple useful positions. So really, this guy is just a backup for the bench. That's the role that he's going to fill, and we were basically happy to throw away, so to speak, the money to get him 220k, because he's probably only going to do the job for one season, and probably not going to be able to sell him for anything at the end of that season. So it's basically just some money thrown away to enable us to compete a bit better, cover injuries a bit better. So the only real purchase really was this Wiki player for $5.5 million, and basically this is to play right wing to replace the player that we lost, that we sold for $1.5 million, and he isn't probably as good as that player, quite as good. He may be better, hopefully will be better in the future, but he isn't as good now. So we basically downgraded at a £4 million loss in the immediate term, but hopefully in the longer term it will turn out to be a good decision. But really, he's got to develop a fair bit really to make any profit off of him. But we're hopeful really that worst case scenario, worst case scenario for us is that he doesn't do a great job and we eventually sell him at a loss, but not a huge loss. I think that's hopefully the worst case scenario we're staring down the barrel at here, that in a season or two's time he just isn't doing the job, and he's not looking like he's going to get good enough to do the job properly in the future for what we need and where we want to be, and we end up having to sell him for a reasonable percentage of what we paid for him. We're hopeful, and the best case scenario is that he develops a lot, and as you can see he's got a lot of up arrows here. They're all up arrows basically, so it's possible he can become really good. We'll just have to see. But yeah, I say really good. This is relatively really good for us. He's never going to be like totally world class at all. So yeah, so that's that. We got the sales. Oh, I'm wrong. I don't think anybody bid for him, and he's become a free transfer. Is that true? Yeah. So nobody bid for him, so he's become a free agent. So yeah, so that's the situation with the transfers. Not really much exciting, I guess. Just that one, right wing Wiki player. That is pretty exciting news. It's really our first proper big purchase, and a player that hopefully I could say with some confidence that he will be around in a few seasons' time. But probably the only one. So I think that really is enough here. I think we've covered it off, and our plan, we're talking about our 5-season plan. Last season promoted, this season promoted, next season not get relegated and hopefully finish as high as possible, and improve the squad properly in a controlled way, in a deliberate controlled way, no rush decisions, basically sacrificing results in the short term to have proper foundations in the long term, but avoid relegation in that first season, and then hopefully, in an ideal world, come our third season, so not next season, not the one after, but the one after that, that the ultimate goal is that hopefully for that season we can properly challenge and hopefully ultimately be successful in a say top 4, but we might only be 3 spots possibly in this FA. There will be some, so not a top X finish, but just a Sans Paro Cup qualification finish come in our third season in Division 1. That is kind of really the plan. Who only knows if it'll work out, but you need to aspire to these things because it needs to ultimately guide your long-term decision making, because making stupid, rash decisions when it comes to lots of money in the game can really set you back a long way. So all of our decisions are made with that ultimate goal in mind. The players that we've got wanted to achieve promotion. There was no point in us adding extra squad depth to pay extra money, to pay extra wages. We could have improved the squad easily by spending some money, and if we had we might have been able to do better in the league. But we chose not to, because what we had, we always made sure we had enough to get a top 4 finish. If that ever looked under threat at any point, we would have put the money in to make sure it wasn't under threat. But it was never realistically under threat at any point. We always looked like we were going to finish in the top 4 last season. We always looked like we were going to finish in the top 4 the season before. So, and next season, hopefully it will be the case that we always look like that we're not going to get relegated, hopefully, and we can keep that really good, solid, long-term decision-making intact. So, No more trophies for the cabinet this season, but one day, hopefully, we can add. All we've got is the sort of lower division title winners for Division 3. You've got a Division 3 trophy, arguably that doesn't even count. So hopefully we get a proper big trophy at some point. But I really got to say, I just don't. Just really be very surprised. It'd be nice to get one in the next 3 seasons. Honestly, I'd just be really surprised if we achieve that. It'd be a nice surprise though. So we'll see. Like I said, our goal really is in 3 seasons' time to have challenged and hopefully ultimately achieved Sandsparrow Cup qualification. So that, I'm putting it out there. That was our goal from the day we started, and that's still our goal now. So let's hope that we can pull it off and make lots of more good decisions in the future. And as and when, sort of, I guess we'll do another video at the end of next season. But if there's enough, if there's a reason to do one mid next season, we will. If we happen to pick some players up that change stuff. But really, there just wasn't a lot to update here. Just we came second, we got promoted, we bought 1 player of any note, and our youth teams did alright, considering they're all free. In summary, that's the short version. So cheers, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next season. Cheers.